at 6.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Mastry.
And I'm Aaron Sullivan. Let's get right into your top 6 headlines at 6.
A shakeup of Nebraska Medicine's leadership, along with an apparent investigation by the Nebraska Attorney General. The University of Nebraska Regents say they're replacing Nebraska Medicine's board of directors with their own in response to a lawsuit. That lawsuit is seeking to stop the $800 million sale of Clarkson Regional Health, their stake in Nebraska Medicine. And that would then go to the university. Much more on that coming up.
Nebraskans with a gambling addiction could lose a lifeline. Governor Jim Pillen wants to shut down Nebraska's Commission on Problem Gambling. The commission's director, who once struggled with gambling himself, says if others can't get the help they need, it could cost lives.
Governor Pillen announcing Nebraska's National Guard will deploy to Washington, D.C. Local soldiers will ship out at the end of February for 3 to 4 months. They'll serve as reinforcements for President Trump's crackdown on crime in the nation's capital. Former Des Moines Public School Superintendent Ian Roberts officially pleaded guilty to federal immigration charges today. He was arrested by ICE agents in September. Roberts faces a maximum of 20 years in prison for those charges.
Our investigation revealed that Donald Trump was not looking for honest answers.
Kevin McCarthy.
Former special counsel Jack Smith defending his investigations into President Trump at a congressional hearing today. House Republicans claim Smith's investigation was politically motivated. Smith says it was simply about the rule of law. And President Trump filing a $5 billion lawsuit against J.P. Morgan Chase for dropping him and his family as customers after January 6th. Trump called the move, quote, political discrimination.
Well, most of the metro has some